This video is a brief introduction to tasting wines. Here we study where in our perception systems sensations are turned into perceptions. We'll study the different ways of perceiving the sensory experience of tasting wines. First, we will identify the parts of the human perception systems. We revise 3 of the 4 human senses: seeing, smelling, and tasting, as these are the most engaged in the wine tasting experience, although some highly expert sommeliers are able to perceive some differences in the noise that the wine makes when poured into the glass. But the sense of hearing is not commonly include sense among the ones involved in the wine tasting experience. In this video, then, we concentrate on seeing, tasting, and mouthfeel of wines, with a special interest on the mouthfeel of wines. The vocabulary and grammar that we're going to deal with is related to, obviously, to sensory perception. When we refer to physical things, persons, or feelings, we use the words called nouns. The meaning we capture using such nouns is a referential meaning, because its most important function is to refer. By doing this, we are able to conceptualize things, and precisely because we have conceptualized a thing and giving a word to name it, we can communicate it. This is precisely what language as a singular human capacity is for. For example, it is because we humans are able to grasp the common characteristics of grapes as different from the characteristics of other fruits, such as, for example, bananas. It's because of that, because we are able to grasp the common characteristics of both fruits, that we are able to share this concept with other people simply by naming this object with the term grape in English, or using other words for this concept in other languages. Giving names to commonly shared concepts is exactly what makes communication possible. We call this reference, and to capture reference we use vocabularies, and particularly we use nouns. Nouns are part of the lexicon of a language, and they can be studied in the grammar of a particular language as well. The other thing that we use to describe describe wines are other different codification systems, such as, for example, metaphors or grammar. We use metaphors as a shortcut to express or to define something more complicated. A metaphor, for example, is a description of something by indirectly comparing it with something else, but actually not naming that something else. So we use references, we use adjectives and different lexicon, and we use metaphors when we describe wines. Let's very briefly concentrate on on the 3 stages of the wine tasting sequence. The seeing process identifies colors and shades of colors or hues. The smelling process takes care or has to do with the perceiving cells that are located inside the nose. Smell and taste are closely related senses. And tasting, the stage of tasting, tasting perceiving cells are located in the mouth. So, concentrate on this image that's adapted from Baldi, and with a small reference here that's interesting. I wasn't a very good photographer and I couldn't make it better. But anyway, you can see it. What we can see here is how close the entry air canal inside the nose here and the entry of food here in the mouth, how close both canals are. Both entries converge in an area called pharynx, that's somewhere around here. We can identify the tongue, that's the body part that concentrates the taste sensory perception papillae. These cells are specialized in capturing the tasting perception and converting it into information that the human brain here recognizes. But because, excuse me, but because the smelling and tasting papillae are pretty close, most of us have experienced not being able to smell things when we have a cold, for example, like me now. Now, let's see a little bit more about the where in the tongue we do feel flavors. If we take a look at this diagram, it's a kind of a representation of the human tongue. In this diagram of the human tongue, we can see how the tongue has certain areas that are specialized in perceiving the different tastes. So the tip of the tongue concentrates on capturing sweet flavors, and both sides, here and here, they are marked in green in the picture, and small central part here, central part of the tongue, I mean, are specialized in capturing flavors. There are also two longitudinal areas in the middle part of the tongue, here in blue, that are specialized in perceiving sour flavors. So while the green parts are specialized in salty flavors, the parts in blue are specialized in sour flavors. So more or less you can get an idea of where physically one kind of papillae is located. So what's describing tastes? Let's read the definition of these two words, taste and flavor. See how they are related. Somehow they are a circular definition. The class of words that describe things are called adjectives in English, and adjectives are the class that do not refer to or point to things, but to the properties that things have. The words sweet, salty, sour, and bitter are adjectives, that is, they concentrate on the properties that wine has. So these two definitions have been taken from Collins-Cobell Dictionary. A taste is one, oh sorry about that. So I was telling you something about the definition taken from the Collins-Cobell Dictionary, which is one of the 5 senses that people and animals have. That's a very wide definition. But see how flavor is defined. The flavor of particular food or drink is the taste that it has. So it's given flavor, again, is defined as a property. So that's the difference, that flavor is defined as a property and taste is defined as a general, as a physical sense that we share with animals. And now let's turn into the sensation, the difference between sensations and perceptions, how all these work. Sensation and perception are different things. I'm not a psychologist, but I know this. It's very basic. Let's say that certain stimulus impact certain cells in our nose, and we recognize and interpret this impact almost unconsciously. But when we perceive this same impact in a conscious way, we call it differently. We call it perception. And now let's put all those things together into the will, this kind of will, how to relate sensory experiences and references. The reference used here are of different origins. They are mineral, vegetable, animal, etc. They are the things that we connect different flavors and smells to. You can print this picture and or try to find a better version of it in the web and practice relating smells and flavors of your favorite reference for fragrances, such as flowers or fruits, for example. And a couple of things about the use of the present tense here in tasting notes, on a couple of examples. The wine's still young and uninvolved. It undergoes malolactic fermentation in oak. This will improve dramatically after 1 hour in the glass. So we can see examples of the simple present tense. Because the idea of a situation or a process, such as a comment about wine, can be conceptualized as a whole, we identify the words that capture the idea that something happens before or after something else. As I explained before, the word once can be an example, a good example of this use as a marking, as a time marking word. It captures the idea that an event has already happened. Now let's summarize what we have learned here. We have learned to identify what part of our body we perceive the wine with. It is important and it's also difficult. We have learned how to use certain verb tenses and to describe a process. And we have learned the class of words we call adjectives, and how this class of words capture the properties of things, but they do not refer to things. They are all the same, all the previous credits and references are included here. And that was all. Thanks for watching.